It's time we have the talk. It's time we have the talk. And by the talk, I mean what makes a baby, and in particular, this book. Because when I was scrolling TikTok the other day, I didn't realize that there are whole pages dedicated to reading out entireties of like children's storybooks. Like, wow, that's amazing. But they were reading out this book, What Makes a Baby by Cory Silverberg, and it was just like the way it's illustrated and written is the most inclusive book I've ever seen for anything, let alone for something as complicated as reproduction, as complicated as how babies are made. This book is written for any member of the LGBTQIA plus community. It's written for any baby conceived through IVF, any baby conceived via surrogacy, any baby that comes to you via adoption. It's everything. It's amazing. It's for people who don't have uteruses. It's for people who don't have eggs, who don't have sperm, who have nothing. It's for every way that a baby could be made and how it finds its way to its family. And that's just so rare. And so I wanted to actually put aside time to talk about this book because it arrived yesterday. I've read it with my toddler now like 6 times because she's in love with it. I'll add a clip to the end of this video if you're watching on YouTube. Of us actually reading it together and the questions she asks and the way we've started to read it. But the amazing thing is that this book is for my 3-year-old, it's for 1-year-olds, it's for 10-year-olds. It kind of covers all of the age groups. Now, I will say that Cory Silverberg has actually written, I think it's like 61 pages, a 61-page reader's guide. So if you're a teacher or an educator and you want to know more about how to use this book as a teaching material, he's got literally page by page instructions for this book on how you can read it. If you want to, it gives you some insight into how he wrote it that way or why he chose to write it that way, talking points and where you can find more information or how to get more information. It's just phenomenal. So this book on its own as a resource is phenomenal for teaching children how any type of baby, any type of arrangement occurs to bring an infant into this world. Now, I'll stop teasing the book because it's just amazing. So let's have a look at some of the pages because I can't, guys, I can't. So this is a really simple first page. This isn't the one that got me. The one that got me was this one. This is an egg. Not all bodies have eggs. Some people do and some people do not. So you can see here that this person has an egg, this person has an egg, and this person has an egg, this person has a sperm, this person doesn't have either, because that's true. And then the next thing it does, and I love the way that people describe DNA when they talk about it being stories, because that's one really accessible way for a young child to understand it. So it says here that the egg contains stories of the body that it came from. So it talks about, so stories are DNA, right? But DNA is a really complex idea for little kids and older kids and adults to get their head around. So it's talking about the DNA that is the egg that comes from the, I want to say maternal, but I know that's probably not the right inclusive language to use, but that comes from the egg donor, the egg holder, the egg, whatever you want to call it. There's so many different ways, and I haven't read through the entirety of Cory's reader's guide yet, but I'm certain that there is appropriate language for this kind of stuff written through there because it's so comprehensive. And then it goes on to the sperm, and it does the same thing as the egg. Some people have eggs, some people have sperm. And then it says inside the sperm there are stories because the sperm also carries DNA. Then you've got, what does it say? When grown-ups want to have a baby, when they want to make a baby, they get egg from one body, they get an egg from one body and sperm from another body. This is really important because this doesn't preclude which body it comes from. It doesn't say that it comes from a mother and a father. Oh, it's getting dark, sorry about the bad lighting. It just says that they get an egg and they get a sperm and that's where they start. And that's just the coolest thing ever. They also say this is a uterus, this is a place for a baby to grow. You think that everyone has it because they've got the words you and us in it, but not everyone has a uterus. Some people do, some people don't, and that's okay. Holding the book up is changing the lighting, so I apologize. This is awesome. When the egg and sperm meet, they dance and tell each other stories. Now, this is kind of awesome because, like, for some reason, the depictions are always of a sperm charging towards an egg. And then the egg is like, oh, you know, like it's sexism from conception, right? And this is even in like educational stuff. There's no science to say that that's how it happens. We have no idea if that's how it happens. That's just, you know, the patriarchal structure of humanity filtering through into scientific explanations to children of how conception occurs. So this is beautiful. They're dancing together and they're talking. They talk so much, they dance so much, when they're done, their stories mix together and they make something entirely new. Now this part also got me. Everything in this book gets me, but you know. So here they talk about, at first, it's a tiny thing. Sometimes that thing doesn't grow. And sometimes it does grow into a baby, just like you. Now, this is a tricky one to talk about, but it's a good opening for you to talk about miscarriage, to talk about why some babies are born and others are not. There is so many things, and I think that there will probably be a guide in the book about this too. I mean, a guide in the reader's guide about this page. I think that's really awesome. These pages are really nice. So who helped bring together the sperm and the egg that made you? So that talks about the genetic contributors. But then it also says who was happy that it was you who grew. That talks about who wanted you, who created you, who are your not necessarily your biological parents, but your actual parents. Who are your grandparents? Who's so glad that you were born? And that's just awesome as well. So this is one of my favorite bits that parents still need to learn. It's something I talk about a lot. So everything that grows differently. Each of us grow in our own way. How a baby grows depends on the stories that the egg and sperm share, and on the uterus the baby is growing inside of. And if that's not the most accurate thing I have ever heard, I don't know what is. That's such complex science and human variability described so simply for humans and adults. So it then talks about the growth of a baby. This one's pretty straightforward. Sometimes the baby is ready to come out on its own. Sometimes a midwife or a doctor will be the one to say it's time. So that's talking about induction, which is awesome. No matter who decides, the baby doesn't come out on its own. I mean, it definitely gets help from the uterus, if nothing else. It also gets help from doctors if it needs it. This part's really awesome to talk about. I've done this with my daughter. We always talk about how she was born versus how her cousins were born. So some babies come out through the vagina. Well, some people call it a vagina. And then sometimes babies come out through the stomach, through a cut in the stomach that they then sew back up. This page talks about how it's pretty exhausting and pretty intense for the baby and whoever births the baby, and then everybody needs rest afterwards. And then it's just another page talking about who was waiting for you to be born. And this book is full of questions and talking prompts and things like that, which is great because it stimulates dialogic storytelling. And if you haven't watched my video on dialogic storytelling, where I tell you I don't do a lot of it, then you wouldn't know that dialogic storytelling is the best type of storytelling and reading you can do, because it helps your child learn the most and it helps you and your child connect the best. So yeah, this book is great in so many different ways. It's such a great educational resource. It allows space for both scientific explanations and spiritual explanations. It gives you the framework, the scaffolding through which you can describe to your child like the idea of conception, the idea of how a baby is made and what goes into it in all the different versatile ways. And you don't have to take it any further than what's on the page. Or you can take it as far as you like, and that's really cool. So the reader's guide is really, really exceptional to have alongside it. I know that I've already had followers, because I posted it on my Instagram story last night. I've had followers tell me that, you know, they have a surrogate baby and they bought it for their baby and it's perfect for that. Babies with two mothers, two fathers, it's perfect for that. All sorts of things. It's a perfect book to describe how a baby was made, how you were made. It's great for if you're having a second child so they can understand how a baby that is coming into the family is made or not. And it's just, I love it. I really do. So yeah, it's a vibe. I recommend you run and buy it. And I hope that Corey Silverberg does more things like this. And I'm just gonna quickly Google if he has made anything else yet. He's a Canadian sex educator. Show me your books, Corey, because they're just amazing. So there's one called Unisex, which is a new LGBTQIA plus inclusive approach to puberty, sex and gender for kids 10 plus. There's Sex is a Funny Word, which is an essential resource about bodies, gender and sexuality for children aged 8 to 10. There's What Makes a Baby, which is this one. Oh, The Ultimate Guide to Sex and Disability for all of us who live with disabilities, chronic pain and illness. That's really cool. It's written by Miriam Kaufman, Corey Silverberg, and Fran Odette, I think that says, which is just really cool. So those are Corey's books right now. And if you are looking for an older kid book, you know, there are others out there. They're really cool. There's a puberty one, bodies, gender, puberty, and sex. Sex is a funny word. So yeah, I think it's amazing. I think that this person is gonna kill it in the sex education space. And yeah, now I will leave you to the adorable clip of my daughter and I reading What Makes a Baby. Enjoy, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. This is a story about how babies are made. The first thing you need to know is that babies can't be made out of nothing. You have to start with something. This is an egg.
That's how we make babies.
Yeah, that's half of it. Not all bodies have eggs in them. Some do and some don't. Which ones have eggs?
That one and no.
Yeah.
And then that one has sperm.
That one has sperm, that's right. Inside the egg are so many stories, all about the body the egg came from. Look at all the stories the egg has. This is a sperm. Not all bodies have sperm in them. Some do and some do not.
There's sperm in it.
Uh-huh.
There's sperm in it.
Uh-huh.
And the sperm has the egg in it.
No one's got an egg in it, that's right. Inside the sperm, just like inside the egg, there are so many stories about the body the sperm came from. Look at all the sperm stories. It's got so many. When grown-ups want to make a baby,
Don't touch me.
sorry, they need to get an egg from one body and sperm from another body. They also need a place where the baby can grow.
It goes down there.
Yeah, it grows in our uterus. This is a uterus. It's a place where a baby can grow. You might think that everyone has a uterus, since it has the words you and us in it. But
But
not
does
everyone
Daddy-
has a uterus.
But Daddy has a uterus.
No, Daddy doesn't have a uterus. Mommy has a uterus. Daddy doesn't.
Do I?
Daddy, you probably have a uterus. Just like eggs and just like sperm, some bodies have a uterus and some bodies do not. Which ones have uteruses?
This one.
Where's the uterus? These guys have uterus. Uteruses? I don't know. Every body that has a uterus always has it in the same place. Just below the belly button in the squishy part. When an egg and a sperm meet, they swirl together in a special kind of dance. As they dance, they talk to each other.
But they're holding
They're
hands.
holding hands. The egg
How
tells
can
the...
they walk?
I don't know, he's just all of a sudden got legs. Oh, so does the egg. The egg tells the sperm all the stories it has to tell about the body it came from. And the sperm tells the eggs all the stories it has to tell about the body it came from. When their dance is done, they are not two things anymore. They danced around and shared so much that they became one brand new thing.
What?
they became a baby.
Is that the...
It's actually called a blastocyst when it implants in the uterine wall, but you know.
Is the baby teeny tiny?
Yeah.
Is that pimple?
Yeah, that's how small it starts out. At first, it's just a tiny thing. Sometimes this tiny thing doesn't grow, but sometimes it grows into a baby, like you did.
Mama.
Mm.
I'm going.
Okay. Who helped bring together the sperm and the egg that made you? I helped. I had an egg. Daddy had a sperm, and that made a CC. Who was happy that it was you who grew? Who do you think was happy that you grew?
Would I like that?
Yeah, you would have been like that at some point, snuggled in Mummy's arms.
And the baby in your tummy. That's so many kids.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Maybe it's a load up plan.
Maybe. It's a long pram, isn't it? Everything that grows differently. Each of us grow in our own way. How a baby grows depends on the stories that the egg and sperm share, and on the uterus the baby is growing inside of. So many different ways to make other people. But before a baby...
Is the baby like that tiny?
This one. But before a baby can be born, it has to get bigger,
Big.
bigger, and bigger.
And then
2
they grow into...
3 weeks,
Yeah.
5 weeks, 7 weeks, 12 weeks, 38 weeks.
And then they get to be... And then they get to be born out.
Yeah, that's right. It usually takes about 40 weeks. Sometimes the baby is ready to come out on its own, like you. You came out on your own. Sometimes a midwife or a doctor...
Did you put your hand on the toilet?
No, you were like, I'm ready to come out now, and so my uterus squeezed you out. Sometimes a midwife or a doctor will be the one to say it is time for the baby to be born. No matter who decides.
Is the baby like teeny tiny? Is that the pinky?
Yeah. So no matter who decides, the baby does not just hop out by itself. The uterus goes and helps the baby go out through the vagina. Sometimes. Some babies are born by coming out through a part of the body that most people call the vagina.
Is the baby in your tummy gonna come out like that?
Maybe. That's the way you came out. And other times, doctors will make a special opening below the belly button to take the baby out, then close up the hole. Like your cousins. That's how your cousins came out. They came out through the belly.
Do we see them in there?
No, you were not born yet. You weren't even conceived yet.
When I was sitting down there, they did good.
Maybe. Whichever way the baby comes out, it's a pretty big deal for the baby. It's also a pretty big deal for the people who waited and waited and waited for the baby to be born. Sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes it is quick. Sometimes it hurts a little, sometimes it hurts a lot, but usually everyone needs a lot of rest afterwards. Lots of rest, because it's really exhausting on bodies. Who was waiting for you to be born? Who waited for you to be born, miss?
I don't know.
Your mummy and daddy?
Oh, Papa.
Yeah. Who else was waiting for you to be born? Nana and Poppy? Gaga? Honey Kylie?
Is it not with
Cousins?
them yet?